and we're just getting started. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching the 19th instalment of my Animorphs recaps. If all goes to plan, this is the third instalment of Animorphs April, so I hope you're enjoying the extra episodes. I am most hyped for today because it is a Cassie book, and as you all know, Cassie is my favourite character. While the rhino image from Animorphs 16 is the one that makes me laugh the most, I have to say I'm a big fan of this cover. Both because it is aesthetically pleasing and also because, yeah, Cassie would be able to morph a butterfly that beautifully, whereas Rhino Boy would probably have some horrible nightmare phase. Anyway, The Departure, which is an intriguing name in and of itself, but even more intriguing when coupled with there's always room for a little change. But let's stop judging the book on the cover and dive right in. In addition to the traditional Animorphs opening, Cassie lets us know that she's going to tell the story as much as she can, and when she stops being able to, Jake is going to step in. Interesting. We open in the thick of the action. No, really this time. This isn't the mole. Cassie is in wolf form and she's fighting a hawk-bajir. So it would seem this started out as a simple reconnaissance mission, scouting out a meeting of the sharing to see what was going on, when something went wrong. One of the human controllers makes a mistake of some kind and gets pulled off into a bug fighter to be given a talking to by Visser 3. I don't have time to explain what all these things are to you. Go and watch the playlist. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it. You have to tell the Visser I'm innocent. That's when we changed our plans. That's when we decided to get involved. See, we figured if we saved the woman, the yik in her head might cooperate with us, might reveal secrets to us. Yiks being known for their friendly disposition and willingness to negotiate. They win the fight. Cassie consumes some hawk-bajir. And everyone reacts a little bit differently. Rachel is hyped up, Marco cracks a joke, and Cassie, I'm never doing that again. Yeah, it was not a smart fight. But hey, we won, Rachel said. No. I'm never doing that again, I said. Never. I quit. I quit this stupid war. I quit the Animorphs. And that's where the book ends. Thank you so much for watching. I'm just kidding. But Cassie is not. At this point, she has gnawed on one too many hawk-bajir and she is done. Cassie goes to the barn to collect her clothes. Cassie's dad meets her afterwards and tells her about some leopard that has escaped from somebody's private collection. Surely that won't be relevant later. But he seems all too cheery. This is some kind of deception. There's no easy way to do this, my mum said. Cassie, we've lost funding for the clinic. We just got word this evening. I am genuinely gutted by this plot point. I was very invested in the animal clinic. As somebody who read a lot of Dolphin Diaries as a child, care about the animals. So it turns out the pet food company who was sponsoring the clinic is pulling out and now they need to find funding or they just can't exist anymore. Cassie's dad is going to try to raise the money, but there is a high probability that it won't happen. My mother was peering closely at me, looking bothered. Honey, you have something in your teeth. Right there. She pointed to her own teeth. I felt with my finger. I pulled out a small shred of something green and grey. Somehow, while morphing from wolf back to human, it had become lodged between my shrinking teeth. A small sliver of hawk-bajir flesh. Talk about insult to injury. So Cassie eventually falls asleep and dreams she is a T-Rex, which would normally be a very fun dream, but in the context of trauma is probably less fun. She wakes up and tries to shake off the dream, but then I saw a flash of movement, just a patch of darkness that shifted out of sight behind the barn. Probably an animal drawn to the smells and sounds of prey in the barn. Only the eyes, the faint glimmer of eyes, did not come from low to the ground. It came from higher up. Like human eyes. Well, fun. Cassie skipped school the next day, only to be interrogated by the others about it in the barn later. I guess she did also quit the war to save mankind, so they've probably accepted there's other stuff going on. Cassie finally breaks down and says she's feeling terrible because she kept eating that hawk-bajir even after Jake said they were done and they could retreat. I feel bad because I felt nothing. I felt nothing, Rachel. At that moment, I felt like I was just doing my job, you know? And now they're shutting down the clinic and my dad tells me and I feel nothing. It's been going on for a long time. Each day, each battle, each mission, I just feel less and less. Rachel and Marco don't take this particularly well. Their angle is, you expect us to risk our lives while you take the moral high ground. Normally that attitude would annoy me, but I think in this case I just have to accept that these are teenagers, and that is probably the reaction I would have as well. And they're dealing with a lot. Jake and I were alone. He looked down at the ground. Don't morph, he said. If you're not an Animorph, don't use the power. I won't. You'll want to, he said, but if you do, you run the risk of getting caught. Those risks are acceptable if you're going to help us, but if you're not in the fight anymore, you can't use the weapon. This is sound logic, but Jake telling someone not to do something just really makes me want them to do it. Thankfully, this is a book, and the rules of book world are break the rules. Cassie heads out to do her chores, which have been neglected while she's been saving the world, only to find that the horse trough that she was meant to clear out has been cleared out, presumably by axe at some point. Once again, she sees movement in the trees. Is it the escaped leopard? No. That doesn't make sense. Then, whatever it is comes barreling out of the trees, and it is in fact a small girl with red hair being chased by a bear. The girl climbs a tree. Cassie knows this is no good. Bears can climb trees. And there's a cub following the bear, which explains why it is quite so angry. Cassie manages to swoop in on her horse and save the girl from the bear, only to realise that the horse is now gunning for the river, which has whitewater rapids. To top it off, Cassie hits a low-hanging branch and flies into the water. She's knocked about by the rapids a bit, falls down a waterfall, and is knocked unconscious. I didn't feel the arms that hauled me up out of the water. I didn't feel the mouth that breathed air into me. Yes, the red-headed girl has saved Cassie's life. Teen fiction led me to believe that I would be knocked unconscious and resuscitated a lot more than I have been in life. I suppose I should be grateful for that one. I'm just gonna get the door. Opening that parcel is my reward for finishing this video. You saved my life, didn't you? I said to her in a hoarse, raspy voice. Oh, sorry. You saved my life, didn't you? I said to her in a hoarse, raspy voice. You saved mine, she said. That bear could have killed me, so now we're even. I don't owe you anything, you don't owe me. It was a strange thing to say. Too mature. I don't know. Too old to be coming from someone so young. The girl, Karen, no really, that is her name. I'd forgotten that people were actually called Karen. The girl was also knocked out, so they now have no idea where they are, and it's a pretty big forest. Oh yeah, and Carol's ankle is hurt pretty bad, so there's no way they're running out of there anytime soon. Karen, what were you doing there in the woods to begin with? She didn't answer. She just looked at me. I felt a new kind of chill. The other night, someone was behind the barn, looking up at my window. That was you, wasn't it? Karen's answer is simply, you interest me, which is not something you say to someone that you're going to need to carry you out of the forest. If I'm right about you, then you can fly away from this place anytime you want. If I'm right about you, you can also, let's just say, make a few changes and kill me. I forced an awful fake laugh, which I assume sounds something like, ha ha ha! What on earth are you talking about? Oh, nothing on earth, Karen said. At least that's what everyone believes. Humans can't morph. Only Andalites can morph. Only an Andalite could become a wolf and rip the throat from my brother's host body and leave him dying. Well, Karen is certainly in the know. Cassie tries to play it off, calling Karen one of those X-Files people, and basically says like, ha ha, that's so funny, Karen. What strange things you say. Ha 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 ha. And while Karen seems unconvinced, there is a flicker of doubt there, which is enough for Cassie. Odds are there are wolves in this wood. I mean, actual wolves, not teenagers in wolves' clothing, and they need to make a move, but turns out Karen's ankle is worse than they thought. One thing was certain, if Karen made it back to her fellow controllers, knowing what she knew, oh yeah, Karen's probably a controller, just FYI, in case that wasn't clear. None of my friends were safe. She knew I was an Animorph, or had been one. It would be easy for her to find out who my friends were, to take them, one by one. Oh no, I think we might have to have Karen meet some kind of accident. I mean, I'm sure Cassie is, exploring that in a more of a kind of moral dilemma sort of way, but that was my first thought. Cassie finds a big old branch and debates knocking Karen over the head. Here, I said, this will make a good crutch. Wait here while I find some smaller sticks to make a splint. I have no idea where this is going, and I'm excited. Cassie splints Karen's leg, and they have a bit of a chat, which gives some insight into the Yik's perspective on Andalites. Typical Andalite arrogance, the only race in the entire galaxy that makes war to help people. I'm sure we can draw no real-life comparisons to that statement. So Cassie relays her plan. There's no way they're getting out of the forest tonight. There's a storm coming, and they do not want to be stuck in the open in the forest during a storm. Karen is not pleased with this plan because she's still hoping that Cassie will prove her morphing powers and then kill her and get out of there. Cassie does not do that and instead prompts them towards higher ground. Oh, and they spy the corpse of a deer hung up in a tree in some way. What kind of animal would do that? A bear? No. A wolf? No. That's the work of a leopard. Karen doesn't want Cassie touching her in order to help her up to higher ground, and again we get some insight into the other side of this conflict. Andalites are the busybodies of the galaxy, Karen said, always sticking their noses in other people's business. We have a right to expand. We have a right to advance. But you Andalites don't see it that way, do you? No, the whole galaxy has to belong to the mighty Andalites. Now maybe Karen is still trying to push Cassie's buttons, and so maybe there's not that much truth to this. And also the other side to the story is still we want to take your brains and enslave you. So there's not much more to it, but there is more to it. So if I'm an Andalite and these Andalites are such rotten people, why am I helping you? I asked. Karen considered for a while. I don't know, she admitted. Well, maybe you're just totally wrong about me. Have you considered that? Maybe I'm not a werewolf or an Andalite or anything but a normal girl. They manage to find a cave, and Cassie goes in to sort of check if there are any animals already living there. And she starts to morph wolf to check it out, but then remembers her promise to Jake where she said she wouldn't, so she stops halfway through the morph. But since she's already half in wolf morph, she does have excellent wolf hearing, and she can hear Karen shuffling around to spy on her. Good job she did, or she would have been caught. Good job where, Cassie? As herself, and not as a wolf, Cassie does scout out the cave, only to have have to run back when she hears Karen screaming, because it turns out she's being set upon by a leopard. She watches as Karen fires a Draken beam at the big cat, only to fall down when her ankle gives way. And she manages to drop the Draken beam, which clearly need those straps that they put on the Wii remotes when people kept throwing them through their TV screens. I mean, gun versus thing that you use to do Wii bowling too enthusiastically, but still. Karen is distracted by the leopard, while Cassie says, crawl round to me. In the meantime, the leopard is getting very confused as to why that girl is starting to smell more and more like Wolf. Wolf Cassie leaps onto the leopard, who decides better of the whole thing and just skulks off. And Karen picked up her face out of the mud and looked at me. "So," she said shakily, "I guess you are a werewolf after all, so I guess we have some talking to do." It took much longer to build a fire. I'd done it once before, built a fire without matches, that is. It was in the Cretaceous period, during a very bizarre episode in our lives as Animorphs. Let it be known that this is the first time in 19 books where reading the spin-off books would have potentially been helpful. But even then, she explained it to me. I know they were in Cretaceous period. I know it was weird. I'm done. "My parents will be totally frantic," I said. "Mine too," Karen said. I didn't know the Yeeks had parents. Well, it seems everyone is spilling secrets now. Karen knows that Cassie is human, and Cassie knows that Karen, despite her girlish exterior, will take that information to Visser 3 the first chance she gets. But first, time for a heart-to-heart by the fire. They get the obvious bits out of the way first. Cassie was thinking about killing Karen. Karen was thinking about forcing Cassie to morph and then shooting her with a Draken beam. Turns out the reason Karen didn't use the Draken beam on the bear is that she panicked and forgot, and also the Draken beam is kind of made for Hawk-Wajir hands, and she's got tiny little human girl hands, not that useful. Next thing that's revealed is that the Yeeks don't get to choose the body they inhabit, and this Yeek certainly wouldn't have chosen this young girl. Yeah, it's my third host. I started out with a Ged host, like most of us, coming up through the ranks. I was a Hawk-Wajir for a while, boring duty, mostly interspersed with terrifying battles. Then I was assigned to Earth and a human host. They stick to this tried and tested fireside chat, and it's Cassie's turn to reveal a secret. Will you be quiet? How do you come to have Andalite morphing technology? I shrugged. It was given to me by a great Andalite warrior named Elfangor. So I guess we're just telling secrets now. We're just assuming that this is all fine. So it turns out that when Karen was in Hawk-Wajir form, she worked for Visser 3, and he really hated Elfangor. I mean, Visser 3 doesn't really like anyone, but this seems like a specific kind of dislike. I was there when Visser 3 murdered him. Murder? No, it wasn't murder. We're at war with the Andalites. There's no murder in war. It was murder, I said. Cold-blooded murder of a helpless person. I'm just going to take a minute and do some revision of my Just War Theory notes from RE GCSE. So, now, onto the nature of being a Yeek. "It's what we are," she yelled back. "We're parasites. You humans are predators. How many pigs and cows and chickens and sheep do you kill each year to survive? You think being a predator is morally superior to being a parasite? At least the host bodies we take remain alive. We don't kill them, cut them into pieces and grill them over charcoal fire in our backyards." Well, this is just fascinating. I'm so glad we have Karen's perspective on things. Karen falls asleep. She's gone through a lot today, and Cassie muses on what it would be like if Karen took her back to Visser 3 and she had to have a Yeek put in her head. Cassie knows she should destroy Karen, but she just can't do it. Life was sacred, even the life of an enemy. Cassie falls asleep, and this evening's trauma dream features Eric the Chi slaughtering people. It's the next morning, and they leave the cave, both of them presumably with more concerns than they had when they went in. Karen searches for the Draken beam, but it's gone? She looked lost and confused. "I can't go back without it," she said. "It will mean facing sub-Visser 19. More info on Yeek hierarchies. I love it. Karen laughed bitterly. "Well, they'll go easy on me when I bring you in." "Maybe they'll give me to you," I said. "Make me your host body." "No thanks. I don't want any more young female human hosts. Too weak, too emotional, their heads too filled up with..." She broke off. A new weapon against the Yeeks. Raw teen angst. But hey, maybe Cassie can get this Yeek on her side. First up, feed the Yeek. Thankfully, Cassie knows her mushrooms. She knows which ones they can eat. Phase 2. Ask the Yeek about her life. How about this? Does it bother you when you hear Karen, the real Karen, crying inside your mind? Okay, we're skipping the small talk. And Cassie figures out that Karen the girl can feel all the things that Karen the Yeek is feeling. Maybe Karen isn't feeling anger towards this Yeek. Maybe she feels pity. They spot a deer, which provides the perfect in into any conversation, talking about the film Bambi. This human, this host body of mine, she loved it too. It was her favourite videotape when she was younger. You humans make everything sentimental. It's an animal. So what? And there, Cassie can relate, because she too has been feeling rather so what about animals and other things lately. Bombshell. The Yeeks also have Yeeks who are opposed to the war. Nuance. The Yeeks are not a monolith. Now Karen is going to tell us about the way that yeerks are born, and just a warning, it doesn't sound very pleasant. We are born with 100 or more sisters and brothers. We don't hatch from eggs, and we aren't born the way mammals are born either. 3 yeerks join together. They literally join together, with 3 bodies becoming one. Then that one body begins to fragment. It breaks up into smaller pieces. Grubs, they're called. Bit by bit, the body disintegrates, and each grub that falls away becomes another yeerk. Sometimes there are twins. 2 yeerks from one grub. The parent yeerks die, of course. I think this sounds a little bit gross because the idea of swarming grubs freaks me out, but Cassie is more au fait with animals than I am, and she takes it on the chin. And we get to the crux of the matter. For a yeerk, a human life is paradise. Why should they go back to being slugs? What choice do we have? Back to the yeerk pools? Back to our home planet with Andalite dome ships in orbit above us, waiting for one of us to try and rise from the sludge, then blow us apart? Leave the universe to the almighty Andalites and the species they happen to like? I knew this was coming. The yeerk redemption arc, in some way, was coming, but I'm surprised by how hard it's hitting me. But who should show up to interrupt this deep, meaningful conversation but our leopard friend? Cassie is too slow to leap in and stop it grabbing Karen, but thankfully an osprey, which we later realise is Marco, bats it out of the way. Marco/Osprey then hears Karen, who has been grabbed by the leopard, pleading for Cassie to save her life. Cassie is in wolf form now, but she doesn't think she's going to make it in a one-on-one fight with a big cat. "Help me," she moaned pitifully. Karen: "Don't let him eat me." I was shocked. I knew right then. The person begging for help was the real Karen, not the yeerk in her head. But the leopard is pretty badass, and Cassie's not going to be able to beat him. She's basically being ripped to shreds by this leopard. And she's debating just walking away. Cassie's caught in the agony of indecision, because really, what does she do in this situation? But thankfully, Marco has morphed gorilla, and he is there to help. And this time, 2 against 1 is not something the leopard figures it can do. So that's done. And I just want to remind you that historically, not revealing the truth to each other is something that has not gone well for this group of friends. Just a slight reminder that that's a thing. And yet, I knelt in front of Karen and began unwrapping the splint I'd made around her ankle. "Listen to me," I said in a low whisper I hoped only Karen would hear. "Don't tell him what you are, not if you want to live." Karen is deeply confused as to why Cassie wants to help her, and then she realises. "You want to defeat us, without having to kill us. It's almost sweet. It is sweet. Sweet and naive and foolish and utterly, utterly futile." Oh, Karen, you started to sound evil villain-esque. This will not end well. Especially since Marco has morphed back to Osprey, and Ospreys have excellent hearing. Karen busts out the "hey, you eat animals" argument again, but it fares less well for her with Marco. "Hey, we're not cows," Marco snapped. "You can't compare what you do to humans with what we do to cows." "Sure I can. You're our meat," Karen said. Yeah, that doesn't sound as good as you think it does, Karen. That's not going to help them get on your side. But Cassie does have one piece of information that might stop Marco just killing Karen. Because after all, there is one person Marco cares about who is a controller. They try to persuade Karen the yeerk to leave Karen the little girl alone, but she says no. "I'm not making it easy for you." She's becoming more evil villain by the minute. I don't love it. Can we go back to the cave where there was nice, healthy debate? But Cassie cracks it. There is one person in this argument who hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and that is Karen. The girl, not the yeerk. The only way to have a conversation with Karen knowing that it isn't the yeerk is to have the yeerk leave Karen's head. This is getting into a bit of a muddle. It's fine. The yeerk is not happy about this, isn't just going to flop onto the ground where they can step on it. So there's really only one place it can go. Guess those thoughts from Cassie earlier about what she was going to do about having a yeerk in her head were less hypothetical. "No," Marco screamed, but there was nothing he could do to stop me. I was a wolf. He was a human. Already I could feel the tingling touch in my ear. Marco heads off to get the others because he is not equipped to deal with this situation. Now fully human Karen is having a cry while Cassie deals with the fact that she now has a yeerk in her head. Parts of her mind seemed to soak into my consciousness. I could see her, not as well as she could see me, because I could not control which of her memories I looked at. But just the same, the yeerk's mind seemed to blur into mine. It's one way to exchange ideas. And we learned this yeerk's name, designation... Name? I'm going to go with name. Aftran 942 of the Het Simplat Pool. There you go. And it turns out that Aftran is not super keen on battles. You know, after all they complained about going into Karen, they chose to go into her because they wanted out of the fighting. The plan was to make Karen's father a controller because he's like a massive billionaire owner of Unibank, but they hadn't been able to get to him, so they put this yeerk in Karen to keep an eye on him instead. And Aftran's brother stayed on as a Hawk-Bajir. The same Hawk-Bajir that Cassie might have just eaten some of at the start of this book. After revealing that secret, Aftran also discovers that there is in fact only one true Andalite bandit, and the rest are human children. The entire yeerk invasion force is in uproar because of 5 human children and an Andalite cadet? I mean, from that perspective, it really does make the Animorphs seem more impressive. As Aftran wades through Cassie's memories, we kind of get a clip show of moments from the previous books. I felt Aftran opening a specific memory. I felt her causing me to focus and concentrate. As she herself aimed my eyes, I saw the grey feather patterns hands begin to appear on my skin like drawings that slowly came to life. The yeek spread my wings, and she flew. God, remember when this series was about morphing your friend's house cat? From high above, they spot a group of police combing the forest. I mean, 2 young girls have gone missing after all. Those aren't normal rescuers. They are controllers. I know some of them. They aren't looking for you. They're looking for me. They will expect me to be in Karen. If they find her, they'll know I've made you my host. They'll ask why. Was Aftran anxious? Afraid? Why? Then, as the yeek pans her head, Cassie spots the others in bird morph. You know, large group of strange, rare birds all grouped together. She knows that they will capture Cassie and then hold her hostage until 3 days have gone and the Kandrona rays wear off. But at the same time, if the controllers find Karen and she doesn't have a yeek in her head, they're just gonna kill her. Then let's put an end to the killing, I cried. Your side, my side, the Animorphs will be here soon. They've seen me. There will be a battle. Some of those controllers down there on the ground will die. Some of my friends may die. Karen may die. You may die. For what? For what? I really feel like I'm on a season finale at this point. Will Aftran give up the ability to see, to move, to fly, just for one girl? You believe you would sacrifice anything to save Karen, Aftran said. That's what you believe. You believe if you were me, you would make the sacrifices. But I'm not you, I said again. Maybe you are, she said coldly, more than you think. They fly over the controllers and Aftran tells the controllers that the birds are coming and they are Andalite bandits. Lying to the controllers. Interesting. They land by Karen, and Aftran makes her way back into her head. What are you planning on doing, I asked. I looked up and realised that Karen's green eyes were filled with tears. Karen's tears. But they only flowed because Aftran the yeek was crying. Honestly, if I didn't think it would be skating ever closer to a copyright issue, I would read you their whole exchange. Because it is beautifully written, but instead I'm going to say, actually, I think you probably could pick up this book and read it, because it's lovely. I ask you, Cassie, Karen said in a silky voice. Oh, silky. I ask you, Cassie, Karen said in a silky voice, what will you give up if I give up everything? So it turns out that Karen wants Cassie to acquire the DNA of the caterpillar that they've been using as a visual aid. Cassie has to stay in that morph past the 2-hour mark, because if Aftran has to be a worm thing, Cassie has to be one too. And because it's the only thing she can do, Cassie does it. I was alone. I was more alone than any human being has ever been. All right, I mean Tobias, but sure. I abandoned myself to the caterpillar, and it began to climb the stalk of a flower it could not see. Slight interlude. If I was a famous YouTuber, I would probably have an advert or a sponsorship at this moment, but I am not, and I do not. We're now in Jake's perspective. He's flapping around trying to find Cassie when Marco shows up and neatly summarises where we are up to this point. What's happened? I demanded. The short version? She's a controller now, and if we don't haul butt, we're dog food. The boy has a gift for capturing nuance. Jake catches us up on the events of the book so far for them, which has largely been searching the forest for Cassie. This is a war, Rachel said coldly. We're fighting for our lives. We have a right to do whatever it takes to win. But we'll lose. Maybe we'll lose, maybe we'll win, I said. But if we win and someday it's all over, you better hope that there are still plenty of Cassies in the world. You better hope that not everyone has decided it's okay to do whatever it takes to win. That really feels like the crux of the series, and I like it. So that's the point where they spotted Osprey, Cassie / yeek flying around. But they need to stop and demorph because otherwise they're going to hit the 2-hour limit. So that does give yeek Cassie a bit of a head start. They fly over those aforementioned police officers who start shooting at them. Rachel gets hit, so I guess it's time to fight. Jake swoops in to try and get Rachel out of there, but she's too heavy for his literal bird arms, so with the help of Axe, they kind of awkwardly glide away. Axe manages to get back into Andalite form, grabs Rachel, and they run away. Jake has but one instruction. One way or the other, neither Cassie nor that girl gets away. They manage to find the clearing where all of the emotions and ethics are going down, but they are too late. She did it, Karen said. She gave her life. I watched her for almost 2 hours. I kept expecting her to change her mind, but she did it. She gave her life for this little human girl, and because she thought she could make peace with one enemy at least. Karen runs. She's aware that the Animorphs are not going to let her go without a fight, regardless of what deal her and Cassie made. All the while, Rachel morphs elephant because she's not good at regulating her emotions. But then who should show up for round 3? It's the leopard, who just won't quit. Jake debates letting the leopard do the work for him, but Marco turns up in gorilla form and bats the leopard away. That threat is dealt with, I think. I mean, I just expect the leopard to come back every 50 pages of every book from here on out, but they gather around Aftran / Karen. The yeek explains the deal that Cassie and them have made, but they aren't totally convinced. I mean, what yeek would agree to this deal? We're not all like Visser 3, she said. Some of us are just little yeeks, unimportant nobodies who are caught in this war. Some of us also want peace. Some of us want to find a better way, but how can we give up everything and leave the universe to... She jerked her head towards Axe. To them, they'll never feel anything but hatred and contempt for us. Cassie, Cassie did not hate. And now the moral of the piece, which is a good moral, but I'm annoyed that Jake is saying it and not Cassie. I guess sometimes you have to choose between smart, sane, ruthlessness, and totally stupid, insane hope, I said, not even realising I was speaking out loud. You can't just pick one and stick with it either. Each time it comes up, you have to try and make your best decision. Most of the time, I guess I have to go with being smart and sane, but I don't want to live in a world where people don't try the stupid, crazy, hopeful thing sometimes. I may have been having an emotional evening the first time I read this, but I did shed a tear at that point. So Jake decides not to decide. He's not giving an order. Everyone can work out what they want to do on their own time. And Jake picks up the stalk of Cassie the caterpillar's plant and carries it out of the woods. One by one, the others walk out of the clearing as well, Rachel last because she's the angriest, but she does know that she loves Cassie, and loving Cassie means respecting her decision. Rachel reached out her hands to take the stiffening, drying chrysalis. "I'll carry her," she said. "I'll keep her safe." Genuinely emotional. I was very emotional when I read this. And back to Cassie. I was inside a hardened shell, hanging from the bottom of a leaf. I was becoming one of the miracles of nature. I was living through nature's own morphing. In some ways, we knew this was coming. It was on the cover, right? I think maybe having a caterpillar on the cover would have been less impactful. Back to Jake again, because this book cannot stay still. I was sitting in science class listening to some hopelessly complicated lecture about fungus when I saw the familiar flash of brown and tan shoot past the window. "Jake! Jake! She's coming out!" Tobias said. This is not the queer narrative I so desperately wanted, but you know. They gather around the chrysalis which they left in Cassie's wildflower garden. Axe is deeply confused by the concept of metamorphosis. "Maybe she would like to demorph now." "I'm sure she would," Marco said grimly. "Then she should," Axe said. Yep. Axe explains that basically since the natural morph occurred of caterpillar to butterfly, that resets the timer. She's back to having a 2-hour morph limit again. Back to Cassie again, because why not? I had to lie to my parents. I stuck to the truth as much as I could. I mean, I told them about falling in the river, I just left out Karen, and I told them I've survived for 3 days eating mushrooms. I was on the news, and in the newspaper. The headline was, "Girl survives ordeal eating mushrooms." Sidebar, what a rubbish headline. The days go by and no yicks show up to attack Cassie and her friends. No one emerges from the woods calling them incompetent fools and enslaving their minds. And some guy from Unibank has offered to fund the clinic. Apparently his daughter really loves the clinic and wanted him to give the money. Does that mean that Karen is still a yip? Where should this plot thread be resolved but the mall, where Cassie runs into Karen? The little girl lets her know she is free and Aftran has left. Being an Animorph might also let me find other small victories for peace. Amid all the conflict and fear and rage, I could still look for the enemy who might become a friend. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was the best I could do. I genuinely got very choked up by that ending. I think I could end the series here and be very happy, but there is one more week left in Animorphs April, so I guess we keep going. And that is Animorphs 19. Oh, I think this one might be my favourite of all of them so far. It's not my favourite in terms of like fun silliness, but my favourite in terms of like the actual meat of the story. I just thought it was very good. Thank you so much for watching this third instalment of Animorphs April, 19th instalment of the series. I will be back next week for episode 20, which I believe is the start of the infamous Dave trilogy. We will obviously not be completing that trilogy in April, but we will start it, so there's something there. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you want to hear more about the content that I produce, 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week. Very exciting. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Cassie's dad meets her afterwards, and she... Cassie... I was inside a hardened shed. A shed.